You know, waiting on God to answer your prayers can be a bit of a difficult situation at times, especially if the answer that you're waiting for is something that's really intense, or if you've been waiting on it for a while. In fact, anybody that's ever found themselves in that sort of situation discovers very quickly that God and ourselves see situations completely differently. But you know what? If that's you on today, I want to encourage you with something that I picked up out of the Gospel of John, chapter number 11. I want to leave you with 3 quick points, and then I'm going to send you on your day. So let's take a look at this. Point number 1 is this. It's not about you, it's about God. Let me tell you something. As Christians, we're really good at spouting off cliches because they sound good. But sometimes the cliche has to be lived out, and that's what makes it difficult. When somebody else is going through a difficult situation, we're quick to jump up and tell them, listen, this thing is not about you, it's about God. But then something happens to you and you want to switch it around and say, it's not about God, it's actually about you. But if you check the Gospel of John, chapter number 11, when Lazarus got sick, one of the things that Jesus said was that this sickness would not end in death, but that it was for God's glory. Now that's interesting when you think about it, because Lazarus was sick and he was affected by his sickness. His sisters were there at the house watching him, and they were affected by his sickness. But at the end of the day, the sickness had nothing to do with any of them. It had everything to do with God being glorified. I want to encourage you today that if you find yourself in the middle of a difficult situation, see it through eternal eyes and begin to understand that maybe what you're going through has less to do with you and more to do with what God is trying to do in the life of somebody else. Point number 2 is this. God is always aware. You know, since we're humans, sometimes it's hard for us not to put human characteristics on God. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say that you had thrown a party and a lot of people came to the party, but there was someone that you had expected to be there that didn't show up. And in your mind, you're thinking, they must not have known that I was giving this party, because if they had known, they would have been here. Now, sometimes with God, we act the same way. When we're going through something and God delays his answer, we begin to think that God is either indifferent or maybe that God isn't aware of what's going on with us. Because certainly if he saw how intense my situation was, certainly if he remembered the type of Christian that I am, God would have already come here. But the truth of the matter is that God is always aware of what's going on. If you go back to John chapter 11, when Lazarus actually died, no one had to tell Jesus that he had died. He knew it. In fact, it was the Lord who explained that situation to his disciples and was the reasoning behind why he was going back to Bethany. Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. The disciples said, well, Lord, if he's asleep, he'll get better. And then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. So he was fully aware of what was going on with Lazarus. And if the Lord was fully aware of what was going on with Lazarus, he's also fully aware of what's going on with you. No matter how long your situation has been happening, God is right there with you in the middle of that situation. And the final point is this. Perhaps there is a greater blessing in store. Listen, when Lazarus was sick, the whole point of his sister sending word to Christ was so that he could come and heal their brother so that he wouldn't die. But Jesus delayed and Lazarus actually died. Now that meant that when Jesus actually showed up, what they needed him to do was greater than what they had asked him for originally. Sometimes when we're in the midst of a difficult situation, it never occurs to us that perhaps God is delaying his response because he actually wants to do more than what we're asking him to do. Listen, it's one thing for Jesus to come and heal your brother when he's sick, and certainly that's a blessing. But I want to tell you, it's something else if God has to raise him from the dead. That's a completely different sort of blessing. And that's what the sisters received. I want to encourage you on today. Perhaps God is delaying his response because he actually wants to do more than what you're asking him to do. But in any event, if you're a believer, rest assured that God is aware of what you're going through, that God has certainly heard your cries, and in God's own time, God will show up and bring about what he wants to bring about in the midst of your situation. Listen, I hope that this video has been an encouragement to you on today. If it has, do me a favor. Hit that subscription button and become a part of what God is doing with me with this channel. I also invite you to come back here on a daily basis. I post shorts as a way of giving daily inspiration. I see it as my way of doing my part to advancing the kingdom of God down here on earth. Listen, go ahead and have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you real soon. God bless you.